Good evening, welcome to Simpson at 8. The National Federation Party is Fiji's oldest political party and has been in opposition for the last two elections, winning 3 of the 51 seats available. Next week's elections provides an opportunity for the party to build on its numbers and possibly form a coalition to lead Fiji as it develops a partnership with Sitiveni Rambuka's People's Alliance Party. But does it have the policies, vision and candidates to get the people's vote when they head to the polls next Wednesday? Joining us this evening to discuss just that is NFP Party Leader Biman Prasad. Thank you for joining me on the show.
Pleasure to be here, Stanley.
Thank you. Let's start by discussing your partnership with Rambuka because people see it's, and the People's Alliance, people say it's controversial. Why?
There is nothing controversial. In fact, the partnership agreement is a very clear statement. We've done it in a transparent, accountable, and honest way. We have told the people of Fiji very clearly, right at the outset, well before the election date was announced, that after the election, they can expect a NFP and People's Alliance or People's Alliance NFP government. And let me say this, Stanley, it is not a partnership, it's not a coalition before the election because
that's not allowed. Yeah.
That's not allowed. So what we have said very clearly to each other, that whatever the number of seats, we are contesting 54 seats. One candidate was ruled out. We couldn't replace that. So we have 54. People's Alliance has 55. We are all campaigning for every vote that we can. We are doing it jointly. We are doing it separately. And after the election, whatever seats we win, whatever seats the People's Alliance wins, put together, that will be the new government. Now, Sitiveni Rambuka's association with the National Federation Party, we all know about 87. That's 35 years ago. We all know that he was Prime Minister between 1992 and 1999. He was defeated in an election, in a budget, supported against him by NFP and the Labour Party then. Rambuka came back and won a majority in 94. NFP came back with Jairam Reddy and won a majority. And since 1994, Jairam Reddy and Sitiveni Rambuka worked together.
They lost heavily.
No, they worked and got a 97 constitution and they lost.
They lost heavily.
And they lost heavily and they accepted.
it almost wiped out the NFP.
Yes, it did. It did.
And now you try to restart it again.
But that partnership was a very clear statement. And what people have to understand is that we have a working relationship. Then, and I worked with Rambuka when he was the leader of the opposition in Parliament. We conducted joint tours. So we have given the people of this country, Stanley, a very, very clear choice.
You still have to convince people because, for many, this is the man who started everything wrong in Fiji when he did the coup in 1987. Yeah. He overthrew the NFP, Fiji Labour Party coalition under Dr. Timothy Mbavandra. So what makes you believe, or what are you telling people that tells you that this is the change man?
Well, people also remember the 2000 coup. Who was the commander during the 2000 coup? Frank Bainimarama. Who did the coup in 2006? Yes, 87 coup was wrong. We were at the forefront. I was at the forefront of condemning that. We all know that. That's happened. That was 35 years ago. Then we have a history with working with Rambuka. He was a good Prime Minister between 1992 and 1999. Through dialogue, cooperation, consultation, we got one of the best constitutions, widely acclaimed around the world. And so that's what we are basing on. And people, and that constitution was thrown out by Frank Bainimarama and Ayaz Sayed Kayumi in 2009.
We'll discuss about the merits of the 1997 constitution and 2000 constitution later on. But let's just come back to this. Do you think you've lost votes in the Indo-Fijian community because of your partnership with
Absolutely not. Absolutely. In fact, we created a lot of excitement because the people of this country, including everyone, whether it's Indo-Fijian or Itoke or others, everybody, we knew the pulse of the people. I've been in Parliament for the 8 years. In the last 4 years, we understood what people were thinking. After COVID, it was even more. The government was exposed. They knew that these fellows in government right now were taking the country to a brink of collapse, economically, politically. So people saw us in Parliament, and when we got this partnership, they saw a real alternative.
So you're presenting, what are you presenting? A chance for a new beginning.
A chance for a new beginning and a real alternative. For the first time in the last 16 years, people have come to realize that, look, there is an alternative. There is a new vision. There is a way forward from the decline that we've seen in the last 15 or 16 years. So, in fact, this partnership has created the excitement across the country. You won't believe it, Stanley. In fact, in the last 2 or 3 months, and indeed in the last 2 or 3 weeks, we've had overwhelming, response, support.
Okay.
You look at in our mid, and so
I don't. Do your policies match? Because I mean, the government, and I'll tell you what Fiji First has been saying, that Rambuka's policy is very ethnic based, and AG has called you a lackey, hanging on to Rambuka's tail. He's blasted Rambuka and he's called out his political partner Biman Prasad for not speaking out against what it calls Rambuka's old racist policies, which are regressing and will lead to racial discrimination in everyday life for all ethnic communities. He's talking about that scholarship. And this was his words. I'd like to quote some of his words.
Sure.
Here we have someone like Biman who is just simply smiling and sitting next to him. He is a lackey of Rambuka. He doesn't want to object to Rambuka because he just wants to become a minister. That's his endgame. And then he further, in another interview, said, Professor Biman Prasad just wants to get a black vehicle with red lights at any cost, and that's why he's hanging on to Rambuka's tail. So what's your response to
I'm glad, Stanley, that you read all those personal attacks. See, Bainimarama and Kiyum know, the people are telling them, they know they can't win this election. So what they do, instead of talking about the disastrous health services ever in the history of this country, a disastrous economy, a crippling debt level, a crippling, cost of living, which is killing our people. They have presided over a collapse of the sugar industry, the agriculture sector, the forestry industry. They have got nothing to talk about. So what they do, they talk about Biman Prasad and they talk about Sitiveni Rambuka. And these are the only 2 men right now in this country. Frank and Ayaz are the only 2 men in this country who are attacking other leaders personally, who are whipping up racism, who are bringing the subject of communal politics. These are the only 2 men. Nobody else is talking about. Let me just respond to Ayaz. This man says that I'm a lackey of Rambuka. He has been a de facto prime minister. Frank and Ayaz know where each other's tails are. So that's why they're talking about tails. NFP is a party of 59 years. I have stood my ground in Parliament, elsewhere, outside of Parliament before I came here. I am not a coward to be in politics. And let me say this to them. Ayaz, this guy is just getting too personal. He says, all I want to do is become... No, listen to this. Yeah. Listen to, all I want to do is ride a black Prado with flashing lights. This man doesn't know that I owned a Land Cruiser 20 years ago. CK540 is still being run in Lambasa. When this man probably didn't put... listen to this. Yeah, this man probably didn't set a foot at the time, let alone owning one. Right. I still own a Prado.
I think that's essentially the point that they're making.
That's from my hard work. Yeah. I didn't get into Parliament or get into politics through the barrel of the gun, unlike Ayaz and Frank. So these 2 men, they are so desperate. They are so desperate.
So essentially the point that they're trying to make here is that it's an inferior partnership. You're an inferior partner in there. You're just listening to everything that Rambuka is saying. Is that
because they don't have any partner. Because they are dictators. It's a 2-man party. The Fiji First Party is like a Chinese Communist. In fact, it's worse than the Chinese Communist Party, because the Chinese Communist Party at least has a Congress every 5 years. They have the Politburo. They have some meetings. These guys have set up a party, and tell me, in the last 8 years, you look at the Constitution, how many meetings have they held? Did they have a Congress? Do they have executive meeting? Do they have branch? They have run out of ideas. They have run out of money. They have run out of people. So So what they're doing is getting onto personal
And
attack.
it's personal. You think they're not discussing the policy?
No, they're not discussing the policy,
Okay.
and they are threatening the people.
Okay, we'll discuss the policies after the break. You're watching Simpson at 8. Don't go away. Welcome back. You're watching Simpson 8 with NFP leader Biman Prasad fired up for the elections, but you won 5% of the vote in 2014 and 7% in 2018. What's your projections now for 2022?
Well, Stanley, all I can say is I've traveled around the country in the last 6 months and more intensively in the last 6 or 7 weeks. We have jointly visited villages, settlements, we've had rallies. And all indications and the mathematics that we've done is that NFP is going to win substantially more seats, and we are very, very confident that we will be in government as a strong partner with the People's Alliance Party.
So I'm seeing the rallies. I mean, you're getting some numbers, but that's together with Rambuka, right? Together with the People's Alliance, you're doing joint rallies. Fiji First is getting quite a lot of excitement also in its rallies.
Well, in Lambasa, if you talk about that as excitement, we had 700 people coming in without being bussed, without being offered food, sulus, ballpoint pens and other things. And they had it on the same day. We had 700 people and some outside, and they didn't even have 200 people. So if you look at their numbers, where they were having 1,000 people before in 2014 or 18, they can't even get 200 now.
Oh, well,
so
what are you doing differently now
Yeah.
that will make that you think the voters are going to start coming away? Because essentially the people who used to vote NFP and Fiji Labour Party, they're the ones that supported
Sure.
Fiji First
Yeah.
in 2014, 2018, in huge numbers.
So, Stanley, that's a very good question. It's not only what we are doing now. If you look at what three of us in Parliament, right from 2014, and more importantly, in the last term of Parliament, and the people of this country have listened to us. They have gone back and looked at what we offered in 2018 in our manifesto, some very sensible, well thought out policies, and the way we have articulated issues on behalf of the people in Parliament in the last 4 years, during COVID, after COVID, and the people can see very clearly that we are providing, thoughtful, sensible policies. We have the pulse of the country, pulse of the people. And so our campaign, in some sense, Stanley, was done already in Parliament. And people saw what this government was. When the COVID pandemic, you know that we had negative growth even before the pandemic in 2019 because of reckless spending and economic policies before 2018 election, because they went on a vote buying spree. So when the COVID pandemic hit us, I mean, this is in answer to your question, why people will vote for us.
Come your way. I mean, they had nine years consecutive economic growth, according to the Attorney General.
Well, I mean, that's again, a big lie. Where has it gone? So what has happened? So when the COVID pandemic hit us, government had run out of money, run out of ideas. These two men were lost. They left everything to Dr. Fong. But more importantly, they didn't have the money. We got all our vaccines donated by our international partners. Australia and New Zealand knew that Fiji had no money to look after its people. So they provided budget support, direct budget support. Then we had to borrow more. But more importantly, Stanley, in 2020 and 2021, during COVID and those 2 years put together, we received about $1.5 billion in remittances. All our friends, and thank God they did. Thank God our friends and families overseas did, because that kept the families going. So people...
Let's come back to the point. Why do you think people are going to move?
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm coming to that. So people actually saw what this government was bragging about through their propaganda and all that.
They were clueless?
Clueless. When the crisis hit, there was nothing to show. And so people then realized, people died. So many people died who shouldn't have died.
Yeah.
And then
But
people,
the government has said, I mean,
Yeah.
the government has said that they, better than most countries around the world, brought Fiji out of COVID
well, that's
into, and is held up as an international example
No.
of success.
no, Fiji did come out well, not because of Frank Bainimarama and Ayaz Sayed Qayyum's policies or what they had in their store. It was because we got massive support, not only from the lenders who allowed us to borrow more, but also direct budget support from our friends like Australia, New Zealand and others. We got support to look after our hospitals. I mean, the hospitals were so badly exposed during COVID. Then suddenly people realized that there was nothing there, there was not much there. And even NGOs, organizations like Friend, Shashi Kiran would
Yeah.
tell you, were supplying, materials to the hospital because government didn't have that.
Well, it was a national effort. I mean, a lot of communities.
That's what I'm saying.
contribute.
So
Okay.
the point I'm making is the people actually
Have seen the record?
have seen the record, and they actually, for the first time, got fully exposed, and that's why people are ready to vote them out in this election.
Okay, there's one thing called, you talked about the policies and people, and the record. The other thing is people looking back at what Bainimarama and the Fiji First government, they say that they've provided. One of the key things is stability and security
yeah.
that they've told on. Like, we are the ones. In their words, Fiji First is the only one that has provided stability and security in the country. And the people, especially the Fijians, I mean, Bainimarama said what NFP has always fought for, one man, one vote. That's what Bainimarama has delivered. True democracy, he said. I've given them equal rights, the common name. And if things get out of hand, if there's instability and bloodshed, who will people rely on? Bainimarama or Biman Prasad?
He forgot, let me start with this common name, the 2013 constitution. He forgot that everybody was a Fijian. He called me a rich Indo-Fijian suddenly. So these two men, Bainimarama and Qayyum, what they're trying to do now, I mean, they said, oh, we've got genuine democracy. But then they talk about stability, they talk about instability, they talk about, they're the only, I mean, if a leader of a country in a democracy says, I am the only one who can provide you stability and security, what do you make of that? That's dictatorship. That's egoistic. That's coming from a man who is not sure what is happening in this country. The stability and security of a country comes from respect for the institutions, independent institutions. The rule of law is looked after by the police. The military is there to defend the country. And so any prime minister or anyone, and including the Attorney General, who's supposed to be the law officer of the country, threatening people with instability,
Well,
you know that they are not providing stability.
They are saying that they're giving people a choice. One is the ethnic policies that they say is being promoted by People's Alliance under Rambuka, and their non-discrimination policies that they've brought about.
Well, these are another set of lies. There's malicious propaganda by the propaganda machine about scholarships being based on ethnicity. Rambuka has time and again said, I have said very clearly that no scholarships would be given on the basis of ethnicity, on the basis of gender, or any other kind of discrimination. He made that clarification twice because there are people going, see, this is what they're doing. They are saying this because they want to threaten the Indo-Fijian voters. Remember what Ayaz Sayed Qayyum said in the last election, that if you vote for Bainimarama, you are putting a dagger on your neck. This time he said, if there is a change in government, there will be instability. What is this man talking about? In fact, he is inciting, instability by saying that and causing instability in the economy, in the country.
So to round up,
anybody, just one more point.
Yeah.
Anybody, if these two men go around the world parading themselves as real Democrats, that Fiji has genuine democracy, and then they come back during an election and threaten the people with instability if there is a change of government.
Okay.
What kind of democracy is that?
So, I mean, their line, and
Yeah.
I'll get you to answer this question
Yeah.
before we go to the break. Their line is that they can, only one can provide security for everyone in that Fiji for that matter. You cannot provide that kind of security. This is one statement by Biman Prasad does not know what the DCC does. It brings about more racial discrimination. Maybe he does not care because if you see the assets he's got, he's very well off. But who will look after the poor Indo-Fijian cane farmer when things break loose? Certainly not Biman Prasad. He does not care. If things go wrong, he's well enough to go catch a flight and go to Australia, New Zealand.
Well, let me tell Frank Bainimarama, I didn't run away in 87. I didn't run away in 2000 when he was the commander of the military forces, when he should have known what was happening. I didn't run away after 2006. He should go and ask his de facto prime minister, Ayaz Sayed Kayum, why did he run away in 1988? So it's not people like me who are running away. He called me a rich Indo-Fijian who will run away. He forgot that.
Okay.
He
Let's come to
forgot
the
that
point
everybody is
about
a
the
Fijian.
protection.
No, but this is the thing. This is the thing. Who is Frank Bainimarama and who Ayaz Sayed Kayum to threaten the people of this country that they are the only two people who can provide security? Do you want to, Stanley, do you want to stay in this country and believe that the only two people who can provide security to you is Frank Bainimarama and Ayaz Sayed Kayum? Now, that is what you called coming from people who are thinking like dictators. And that is why I'm saying that both Frank Bainimarama and Ayaz Sayed Kayum have behaved like dictators for the last 15 years.
Before we go to the break.
Anybody who has a little understanding of democracy would never utter that kind of silly word.
Are you assured by the statement by the commander that was made?
Absolutely. Because any institution, whether it's a military, whether it's a police, or an independent institution, and I'm absolutely, and I commend the commander.
Round up, we have to go to the break.
Yeah, because that's what democracy is about, respecting the outcome of the election. And these two men are already threatening the voters that there will be instability if there is a change of government. And I think the commander's statement was timely. People are assured. People are not afraid. I can tell you one thing, Stanley. Frank Bainimarama and Ayaz think that, if they go around the country and say, especially to our Indo-Fijians, we are the guys who are going to provide you security. Rambuka will bring ethnic policies, remove social welfare. This is what they are threatening the people. Nobody believes them. People are not cowards. People are not fools. People do get swayed away. People take different views at different elections.
Well, we've got a history. A history that people can look back to.
Yeah, people can look back to history, but people can also look back to what people did before. And what we are saying is, we all know, we all went through this, but in life, people also want to move ahead. We are not looking back 35 years ago. We are looking at the next 20 years or 30 years.
All right.
And that's what the people of this country want.
Biman Prasad of the National Federation Party. You're watching Simpson at 8. We'll be back with the third segment after the break. Welcome back to Simpson at 8. Biman Prasad, the National Federation Party leader. Now, just before we go on to talk about policies, we'll talk about the constitutions, because that is a key, clear distinction that's been made.
Yeah.
You talking about the 1997 constitution, obviously it allowed for ethnic seats and different numbers allocated for different ethnic groups.
Yeah.
They've brought one, equality for everybody. And they've said that that constitution is the one that has brought out real freedom, real equality for the people of Fiji. And another point that they've made, that it actually allowed the NFP to come back in power, because NFP would probably still have no seats in parliament, but now you have 3. So your discussion about this quickly before we go to
this is a usual talk from dictators. They said, we give you equality. Equality doesn't come, Stanley, from just having equal votes. Equality comes from the government, from institutions, from the policies, and from how people make their life in a country. You know, equality comes through reduction in poverty. Equality comes through good jobs. Equality comes through better economy. Equality comes through access to health services. Equality comes through access to education, infrastructure, water supply. These are real issues about equality, about justice, about how people live well. Now, you look at the record of Frank Bainimarama and Ayaz Sayed Qayyum in the last 16 years. You look at the record in the last 8 years. You know, our poverty level, you look at that. You look at employment. You look at the number of people who have tried to leave this country. And I can tell you, you know, many people are
Right, but don't you think the 2013 constitution is better than the 1997 constitution?
Well, you know, better maybe in one or two areas. But you see, if you look at the process of how the 2013 constitution came back, it was an imposed constitution. And Stanley, a lot of people don't know that all the military decrees that Frank Bainimarama and Ayaz Sayed Qayyum imposed on the country as part of the military rule from 2006 have been preserved in the 2013 constitution. There have been some changes here, whether it's a media decree, whether it's the rights of the trade unions, whether it's a lot of those draconian pieces of legislations was converted to Act of Parliament without any discussion. So basically, under this constitution, you have a government which can run like a dictatorship, and that's what has happened. Because they have all those laws, and they continue to change the laws. If you look at the electoral laws, how stifling some of these laws are, and I've said this in Parliament, that some of them are stupid laws governing the whole electoral process. And that can only happen in a dictatorship. And so,
so you're saying the giving of equality and the non-discriminatory is not enough, you say?
No, I mean, equality, you know, just saying, you know, everybody is a Fijian, just saying that, you know, you have one person, one vote, is not going to give you equality, you know, to improve your life, to live well, to be secure in your homes, to have jobs. Equality is beyond, you know, beyond just the vote.
It goes a long way, though. It goes a long way.
No, I mean, everybody wants, you know, equality in voting. But you have equality in voting, and then you have all these laws which stifle people from freely participating in a democracy. What is that equality? It makes no sense.
Let's move on to what is the NFP's promises and commitments in your manifesto? What's your key priorities?
Well, first of all,
what should people look forward to in the NFP?
First of all, this is our vision. You know that there are draconian laws about manifestos, about making financial commitments. So what we are telling the people through our vision document is where we want to take the country, you know, in each of the different sectors, whether it's health, whether it's tourism, whether it's environment, whether it's how government operates. But let me just say that our vision for Fiji is that we want to take this country, we want to build this country where people can live well, where people can enjoy the quality of life that they have. So what we've done, apart from the big things in our vision in all the different sectors, we have listed, just for our people, what we're going to do in our first 100 days and in the first 6 months.
Tell us what some of the
I mean, one of the first things that we will do when we come into government in the first 100 days is to cut the salaries and allowances of the Prime Minister and the ministers by 1/3. Now, it may not save millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars, but it's a statement we want to make as soon as we come in, because we believe that we are not going into government to look after ourselves. We are going to look after our people. And one thing is, Stanley, that has been very clear, and I've said this in Parliament, a number of times, is the level of wastage that has happened under this
So
government.
you think you'll come and manage things better?
So we will, what we will do, if you look at some of the things that we're saying in the first 100 days, we are going to cut all the wastages, because really, we have almost $10 billion debt. Our per capita debt is worse than Sri Lanka's.
Yeah. What about the key big issues that people want to worry about? Cost of living, poverty.
Yes.
What's your policies on this?
Well, if you look at the cost of living, and I have articulated this, we are going to look at what has happened in terms of why the imported food items. In fact, if you look at what's happening in Fiji, between 7 or 8, big players, 90% of our food import is through them. We are going to review, how the Commerce Commission, what's happening to the price control, what's happening to, the profit margin, what's happening at the wharf. Normally the duty, fiscal duty is on CIF, cost, insurance and freight. Now, cost, insurance, C and I may have remained the same, but the freight cost has gone up, 2 or 3 times. So we are going to look at those flesh points.
On the process to bring the cost of...
Yeah, we are going to look at port charges so that we ensure that, and I am confident that, and I've looked at it, I will have to go into government. We don't know right now what is there. So when I get into government, we are going to look at what is happening, and we're going to look at these 3 things. And I feel, that we can bring the cost of food down by at least 25 to 30% if we look at some of those key areas. So I am very confident, and I know, and I've talked about this, how we can address this, because that's one of the key issues affecting our people right now. The other, of course, related to that, Stanley, is sometimes, you cannot just bring the cost of things down. There are, of course, external forces as well, and we understand that. But we also need to talk about raising people's income. You remember, you interviewed me here during 2018, and we talked about this idea of a minimum living wage, progressively for up to $5.
Well, the government has implemented
that. That's what I'm coming to that. And when we suggested that, Ayaz Sayed Qayyum and his team went around the country. They entered garment factories. They had the business cabal supporting them. They threatened the workers that, if Biman progressively increases the minimum wages, you'll lose your job. Now, 2 years later, after COVID, the man realized that, it needs to go up. Now he's saying that it will be only $4 by January next year. This is before the election, he's saying it. I don't know whether it's going to happen after the election or not. That's another matter. So we are going to look at, and one of the things that we have said in the first 100 days that we will do, we will bring the workers, we will bring the employers, we will bring the government together, and we will sit down and say, look, this is the situation in the country. This is how the poverty level is affecting workers. And let's agree, let's work out a minimum, and I am sure that there are enough employers out there, who are thinking people
come on board,
and that's our plan.
One of the key messages on Fiji First campaigns that I've been seeing on the campaign trail is that they have been successful in reducing poverty in the country. They said, based on the official stats, the poverty rate from 2002 to 2003 stood at 35%, and progressively it's now dropped. It's now at 24%. Now that's a success, right?
Well, there are 2 things in there. When the initial report came out, Stanley, when the Bureau of Statistics chief was sacked for revealing ethnic data, where it was pointed out that 75% of the poor were the Ito case, it showed up 29% poverty. And in that report, it also said that about 15 to 20%, 15 to 20% of the people in the margins of the poverty, in other words, they were vulnerable, could fall below the poverty line anytime, if something happens. Now, the World Bank came later on and said, and revised that, because they said, there was, so we don't know. The World Bank has not come out. We issued a statement. The World Bank did not come out and explain why, what was the basis on which they revised the. So the initial report showed that the poverty had actually increased. Now, if
So
you
don't believe the official stats at face value. That's what you're saying?
No, the first official state showed that the poverty had increased. Then the government sacked the CEO. Then they went back to the World Bank. We don't know what happened, and then they came back with the 24%, and that's the figure they are going around the country and bragging about. So we don't believe anything that this government, says, because they have not allowed the Bureau of Statistics to remain an independent institution, which is a very good. I've worked with them in the past, one of the best statistical officers in the region. So let me come back to that margin. So after the COVID, many thousands of people lost jobs. I think that 15 to 20%, who are on the margins would have fallen below poverty. So if you look at 29% or 30% poverty, we could be looking at, soon after COVID, a much bigger number, almost close to 50% of people living in poverty. How many in the last 1 year have been able to come out of that? We don't know. And this government is not talking about. And anything that comes out from their mouth, we can't believe it unless we get there and see it.
Okay, very quickly, health, water, electricity, these key basic services that needs to be provided.
Yeah.
Government has thrown a lot of money in it.
Yeah.
They've done a lot of investment into these areas in infrastructure. What will you do different?
Before I answer that, Stanley, you said that the government has thrown money. In fact, you're right. This is a government which has been good at throwing money. But you go and look at CWM Hospital. We showed doors in Parliament. You go there, you look at what's happening. You go around the health centers. I come from Draketi. I went to the Draketi Health Center. I grew up there in the 70s and 80s. And when you got to that health center in the 70s and 80s, you could smell the cleanness. You could see these white stones painted, You could see the flowers. You could get into the doctor's. When I went there,
you're going back a very long time ago.
I'm just saying how bad the situation. Today, if you go there, the whole place is dilapidated. I raised this with the Minister of Health. He doesn't know. He said, "Oh, we're going to build one new hospital." So we have to understand first, Stanley, where we are. The health services in this country, never in the history of this country we've had such disastrous health services. So what they did, before the election, this whole thing with Aspen, the whole deal, there are a lot of questions that we have asked. We have not received satisfactory answers. And so what we're going to do...
Yeah, can we come to what you will do?
What we're going to do is to just fix some of these basic things, to ensure that there is basic medicine in hospitals. It's not about...
From the very basic,
from the same budget, from the same budget that these people have allocated. We don't have to increase the budget from of the health ministry to what they had, in the last 2 or 3 years. We just have to make sure that we let the people do the work. So we're going to create an environment. We're going to make sure that we address the base. Plus, whatever wastages we're going to cut, we will divert that to basic, social welfare.
So you're saying it's better management?
Better management.
All right. You, the National Federation Party, you had the opportunity to form government in 1977, but fought amongst yourselves. Power was given back to Ratumara. You won the 1987 election with the Fiji Labour Party in that coalition under Dr. Timothy Mbavanra. It was overthrown by your now partner, Rambuka. You formed the partnership with Rambuka in 1999, lost heavily in the 1999 elections.
Yeah.
And this is the party of Siddiq Koya, A.D. Patel, Jairam Reddy, now the party of Biman Prasad. Before we end this show, what's the NFP's vision in one key message?
NFP will be here to stay. It has survived for 59 years. It has not shaken from its basic principles of democracy, human rights. It has not shaken from its responsibility of looking after our people. And NFP has a history. Without being in government for a long time in 87 or before, NFP has a history of achieving things for our people by working with the government. If you look at the sugar industry, if you look at the University of the South Pacific, if you look at the FNPF, and many other policies that NFP has always advocated, worked with, and provided for. And I am confident that this time, after the 14th of December, the People's Alliance and National Federation Party government will be a government that people of this country would be proud of. People can see the leadership, people can see the talent in both parties, and the people are gunning for us. Our support is increasing, and I am very, very, and Ayaz can be happy that I can smile. I mean, he now talks about, how I'm smiling, but this is a nightmare that he can see now, that the next government will be the National Federation Party and the People's Alliance government.
Biman Prasad, thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Stanley.
Yeah. That was Simpson 8 for the evening. Thank you for joining me on the show. Good night.